and his unparalleled authority, though he received no immediate reward. Meanwhile, Haman, a descendant of Agag, rose to prominence, becoming the king's highest-ranking official. Xerxes, trusting Haman, handed him his signet ring, granting him the authority to issue the decree. Letters were sent throughout the empire, ordering the extermination of all Jews on the 13th day of the 12th month. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Esther sent Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, to speak with Mordecai and uncover the cause of his despair. The Persian Empire, under King Xerxes' reign, was a vast and majestic realm, stretching from India in the east to Kush in the west, encompassing 127 provinces. Each region added to the empire's diversity and wealth. At its heart stood Susa, the royal capital, a vibrant city teeming with merchants, travelers, and citizens, representing a colorful tapestry of cultures, languages, and traditions. The royal palace in Susa was a masterpiece of engineering and artistry, with golden pillars, intricate tiled floors, and sprawling gardens, perfumed by roses and jasmine. This grand palace symbolized the unity and opulence of Xerxes' empire and his unparalleled authority. Within this splendor resided a modest Jewish community, descendants of exiles from Jerusalem during the Babylonian conquest. Scattered and foreign, they clung steadfastly to their faith and the hope of God's promises. Among them was Mordecai, a devout man from the tribe of Benjamin, who worked as a minor official at the palace gates, observing the inner workings of the royal court. Mordecai had taken on the responsibility of raising his young cousin, Hadassah, known by the Persians as Esther. Orphaned early in life, Esther grew up under Mordecai's loving care, learning the traditions and stories of their people. Hadassah, Mordecai would often say, using her Hebrew name, "Our ancestors endured trials that tested their faith, but the Lord never abandoned them. Trust in Him, for His plans surpass our understanding." Esther, known for her beauty, carried herself with humility and grace. Yet, it was her character, marked by kindness, dignity, and resilience, that truly set her apart. She could not have imagined how her quiet life in Susa would soon transform, placing her at the center of a story that would shape the destiny of her people. In the 3rd year of his reign, King Xerxes held a grand celebration to display the wealth and power of his empire. For 180 days, nobles, governors, and military commanders from across the provinces gathered in Susa to marvel at the splendor of the king's court. The feast culminated in a 7-day banquet for the people of Susa, held in the palace gardens. The gardens were breathtaking, with marble columns draped in fine linen and couches made of gold and silver. Servants carried golden goblets filled with wine, ensuring that no cup remained empty. The air was filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, as guests toasted the king's glory. On the final day of the banquet, Xerxes, emboldened by wine, commanded that Queen Vashti be brought before the assembly. Her beauty was legendary, and Xerxes wanted to display her as a symbol of his greatness. However, Vashti refused the king's order, a bold act of defiance that shocked the court. Xerxes, humiliated and furious, sought counsel from his advisors. What should be done to Queen Vashti for her disobedience? He demanded. Memucan, one of his advisors, replied, "If Vashti's actions go unpunished, all women in the empire will follow her example and show contempt for their husbands. Let a royal decree be issued that she is never again to appear before the king. Let her royal position be given to someone more worthy." The king, eager to reassert his authority, agreed. Vashti was deposed, and a search began for a new queen, Messengers were sent throughout the empire to find the most beautiful young women and bring them to the royal harem in Susa. Among those chosen was Esther. Though initially hesitant, she obeyed Mordecai's counsel to keep her Jewish identity a secret. "Do not reveal who you are," Mordecai urged her. "Trust that God has placed you here for a reason, even if we do not yet see his plan." Esther's life changed dramatically upon entering the royal harem. Under the eunuch Hagai's care, she underwent a year-long regimen of beauty treatments, 6 months with oil of myrrh, followed by 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics. Despite the rivalry among the women, Esther's humility and grace distinguished her. Impressed by her demeanor, Hagai favored her, providing the best accommodations and advice. Unlike others who adorned themselves excessively, Esther's natural beauty and poise shone brighter. Mordecai, concerned for her welfare, visited the palace gates daily to hear news of her. Through messengers, he encouraged her to remain steadfast in her faith. "You are here for a reason," he reminded her. When Esther was presented to King Xerxes, her quiet confidence and inner beauty captivated him. Among all the women, she alone won his favor. Xerxes placed the royal crown upon her head, declaring her Queen of Persia. Despite her newfound position, Esther remained humble, reflecting on Mordecai's teachings and the faith that had sustained her people for generations. While Esther adapted to life as queen, Mordecai continued his duties at the palace gates. One day he overheard 2 guards, Bigthana and Teresh, plotting to assassinate King Xerxes. Mordecai acted swiftly, informing Esther, who relayed the warning to the king in Mordecai's name. The conspirators were executed, and Mordecai's loyalty was recorded in the royal chronicles, though he received no immediate reward. Meanwhile, Haman, a descendant of Agag, rose to prominence, becoming the king's highest-ranking official. Arrogant and prideful, Haman demanded that all officials bow to him. Mordecai, however, refused. "I bow to no one but the Lord," he declared. Haman was enraged by Mordecai's defiance. When he discovered Mordecai was a Jew, his anger turned to hatred against the entire Jewish community. Seeking to annihilate them, Haman approached King Xerxes. "There is a certain people scattered throughout your provinces," he said. "Their customs differ from those of other nations, and they do not obey your laws. It is not in your interest to tolerate them. Let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will contribute 10,000 talents of silver to the royal treasury." Xerxes, trusting Haman, handed him his signet ring, granting him the authority to issue the decree. Letters were sent throughout the empire, ordering the extermination of all Jews on the 13th day of the 12th month. The announcement of Haman's decree spread like wildfire across the Persian Empire, causing shock and despair among the Jewish communities. The decree, sealed with the king's signet ring, declared that on the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, were to be killed and their property plundered. This edict was irrevocable, as Persian law could not be repealed once it was signed. In every province, the Jewish people mourned. Their streets were filled with wailing and lamentation. Many tore their clothes, donned sackcloth and ashes, and cried out to God for deliverance. Susa, the heart of the empire, became a city of grief for the Jewish community. Mordecai, upon hearing the decree, was overcome with anguish. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and walked through the city, crying out loudly. His public display of mourning was a stark contrast to the usual decorum expected near the royal palace gates. But Mordecai cared little for appearances. His cries reflected the deep sorrow and fear of his people. When Esther's maids and eunuchs informed her of Mordecai's actions, she was deeply distressed. She sent garments to him, hoping he would exchange them for his sackcloth, but Mordecai refused. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Esther sent Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, to speak with Mordecai and uncover the cause of his despair. Through Hathach, Mordecai explained the details of Haman's decree. He also sent a copy of the written edict to Esther, urging her to go to the king and plead for her people. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape, Mordecai warned her. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family will perish. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther's heart was heavy. She knew the risk of approaching King Xerxes without being summoned. All the king's officials know, she replied to Mordecai, that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the penalty is death, unless the king extends the golden scepter to them. And I have not been called to the king for 30 days. Mordecai's response was resolute. His words stirred something deep within Esther. She realized that her position as queen was not by chance. It was part of a greater plan. Go, Esther instructed Hathach to relay to Mordecai. Gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. For 3 days, the Jewish community in Susa fasted and prayed, as did Esther and her attendants. On the 3rd day, Esther donned her finest royal robes and approached the inner court of the palace, where King Xerxes sat on his throne. Though entering uninvited risked death, Xerxes, upon seeing Esther, extended his golden scepter. "What is it, Queen Esther?" he asked warmly. "What is your request?" Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come to a banquet I have prepared." Intrigued, Xerxes agreed, and Haman, unaware of Esther's true motives, was elated to be invited. That evening, Haman dined with King Xerxes and Queen Esther. During the feast, Xerxes asked Esther, "What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, may you and Haman attend another banquet tomorrow." Haman left the palace filled with pride. However, his mood soured when he saw Mordecai at the gate, still refusing to bow. Furious, Haman told his wife Zeresh and friends about Mordecai's defiance. Zeresh suggested, "Have a gallows built, 75 feet high, and ask the king to hang Mordecai on it tomorrow. Then, you can attend the banquet in peace." Haman approved, and the gallows were erected that night. That same night, King Xerxes couldn't sleep. He ordered the royal chronicles to be read to him. When the account of Mordecai thwarting the assassination plot was recited, Xerxes asked, "What honor has been given to Mordecai for this?" "None, my lord," the attendants replied. Determined to rectify this oversight, Xerxes sought advice on how to reward Mordecai. The next morning, Haman arrived to request Mordecai's execution. Xerxes asked, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Assuming the king meant him, Haman suggested a grand procession with royal robes and a noble leading the honoree through the city. Xerxes commanded, "Go at once and do this for Mordecai the Jew." Haman, humiliated, was forced to honor Mordecai publicly. Afterward, he returned home in disgrace, and Zeresh ominously warned, "If Mordecai is of Jewish origin, you will surely fall before him." At the second banquet, Xerxes again asked Esther about her request. With courage, she revealed, "Grant me my life and spare my people, for we have been sold to destruction." Shocked, Xerxes demanded, "Who is responsible?" Esther replied, "The adversary is this vile Haman." Xerxes stormed out in fury. Haman, realizing his fate, begged Esther for mercy. When Xerxes returned and saw Haman at Esther's feet, he ordered his immediate execution. Haman was hanged on the gallows he had built for Mordecai. Although Haman was dead, his decree against the Jews remained in effect, as Persian law could not be revoked. Esther pleaded with Xerxes, who allowed her and Mordecai to issue a new decree. This decree permitted the Jews to defend themselves against any who attacked them. On the appointed day, the 13th of the 12th month, the Jews across the empire stood together, prepared to fight. With God's favor, they triumphed over their enemies. The streets of Susa, once filled with mourning, now rang with celebration. Mordecai was elevated to a position of great honor, second only to the king. He became a leader and protector of the Jewish people. Esther, too, was celebrated for her courage and faith. To commemorate their deliverance, the Jewish people established the Feast of Purim. It became a time of feasting, joy, and acts of charity, ensuring that future generations would remember the bravery of Queen Esther and the providence of God. Mordecai continued to serve as a trusted advisor to King Xerxes, using his influence to promote the welfare of his people. Esther remained a revered queen, her courage and faith remembered as a beacon of hope. The story of Esther serves as a powerful reminder that even in the face of great adversity, faith and courage can bring about extraordinary deliverance. Through Esther's bravery and Mordecai's wisdom, the Jewish people were not only saved, but were also empowered to stand strong in their identity. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soulful Bible Stories for more amazing Bible stories.